Yeah, I know. That's so like, what was I watching the other day? I was watching a video, I think from a little while ago too, but it was essentially teenagers now playing like video games that we grew up on. I
Yeah.
think they played like the original Tomb Raider, and of course that's become a meme, like the square and all that. And they were playing like,
I love all the cosplays with it with cardboard and stuff.
yeah, oh, the original Prince of Persia, the original one.
Okay, yeah.
They were playing. It's just
That
so,
one kind of died off after the Gyllenhaal movie.
yeah, it was just so weird to me. You're talking about like resolution, like I don't know. I remember that just being so mind blowing. Like
Mind blasting.
when they first came out with like a 3D graphics world, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, you can't get any better than this.
I remember when Mario 64 launched, it like tore my world apart.
Yeah. Oh, it was so
I was like,
yeah.
whoa.
I've still yet
something
to finish that game.
It's good stuff. I have the emulator for it.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. You do. I forgot you have that. All right.
The thing that sucks is they get longer and longer in time investments as they go on.
Maybe if I can ever retire, maybe that's when I'll finally play them all. So I came in blast.
That's what came in blast. Did you by chance rewatch Trick or Treat for this?
I did. Yes.
I watched it twice actually, and man, this one holds up.
Yeah, no, it's still. Is it still like cult status? Like I thought it was.
I think it's only getting bigger with time because more people are catching on to it.
Okay, no, as it should. I really like this movie.
Yeah, it was just last year they released it for the first time ever in theaters.
Wait, it was never in theaters?
It was never in theaters. It came out. It was originally pitched. No, I'm being serious. During its original run, it never got a theatrical release, and that was because it was shopped around, and they kept trying to find a distributor. They had a tough time trying to get that going, and they eventually just decided to release it on home video
that
first. That
explains it, because I remember like the first time I saw it was in college,
mm-hmm.
and one of my roommates was just like, "Oh yeah, let's watch Trick or Treat." And I was like, "What?" And I hadn't heard of it at the time. And when I saw like all the big names in it, I was like, "Wow, when did this like come out? Like when did this? I don't remember seeing this advertised in the theaters." Now that explains it.
Yeah, and it was because of all that weird delay in their release schedule. It was shot fairly earlier on than it was released. Usually, there's some delay for post-production, but I think there was at least a year between when they wrapped the movie and when it actually came out.
Yeah.
And then because of the home video market, it kind of had a slow rollout.
Yeah, well, that's similar to like what happened with the original Terminator. Although I think the original Terminator did hit the theaters, but it just didn't do well. It tanked.
Yeah, but it did have like a weird distribution thing, right?
Yeah, and like it was through VHSs at the time that sort of where it got its popularity. Isn't that the story how it goes?
I know for sure that Austin Powers did that.
Oh, that's how Austin Powers did? Okay.
Yeah, Austin Powers bombed in the theaters. Like, it did horribly.
Yeah.
And then they took it out very quickly. And then during its home video run, it just blew up. Everybody rented it and saw it.
And that's where, wow, I didn't know that one. That's it. Just shout them out when...
Yeah, I can't think of any others like that off the top of my head.
Oh, no,
yeah, this sits in a very interesting pantheon like that, where it just had such a strange release schedule.
And that sucks.
And that kind of initiated its cult status.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's one that not everybody had heard of initially.
Well, this is definitely for me. This is as like Halloween a movie as you can get in like Halloween in
I agree.
This is like this is what Christmas Vacation or what? No, maybe I'll say what.
It's like essence of Halloween. It oozes Halloween.
Yeah, what Elf and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, what's the other, or like It's a Wonderful Life is to Christmas.
That's a great comparison. It is like the Elf of Halloween.
This is to Halloween what those are to Christmas, I think.
Yeah, I strongly agree to that. Like, especially on the front of Elf, like it is the Elf of Halloween, I think.
Yeah.
But yet, like, I think it's that non-linear storyline that it has. And I was left, the first time I saw this, I was left scratching my head over how all these stories link together.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't after like the several times watching through it that I was like, oh, I get how this all connects and links together. This was making it late, but it's one that like the more you watch it, the more you get out of it, I think. And I like movies like that.
No, definitely. And it's not like I have to say, like, having rewatched it again, it's fresh in my mind a little bit more now.
Yeah,
I didn't realize how much I really like this script, how like tight of a script it is. The story, this is one that really hits the tone, I think, perfectly. It never strays from what they were going for, I feel, when you watch it. So if you're looking for like that, because that's always things like when you can write something, if you're trying to do a comedy, you got to make sure it's always funny. Or if you're trying to do an adventure, you got to always have that frenetic action or pace going on. And you got to watch like the tone or the tone promise that you give to an audience. Because like it'd be strange if in something like a romantic comedy, if all of a sudden someone gets their head chopped off for no reason, or if it starts to get too serious with it. This is one that does it.
That romantic comedy sounds awesome for one thing.
This one, although like the Death Becomes Her, I think kind of does that too.
I love Death Becomes Her.
So I stand corrected, but I feel like that does have that knows from the beginning that it has a little bit of a darker comedic undertone going on.
Yeah,
the point I'm getting at here, this long-winded point, is just that it's hard to make sure you stick to a tone in your story. Because it's so easy to like write a scene when the scene can be very dramatic, and then you go and you write another scene after that, and it's like just full on Marx Brothers or full on just like,
especially with something like this that's anthology based, where you have different things going on, to keep that consistent between these very layered and differential storylines. It's testament to this one. I think.
No, definitely, and that is one of the things I love about this movie. I think I'm going to have to make it a repeat holiday classic.
Yeah, and I think one worthwhile of that, for sure.
Yeah. So that's from a story standpoint, that's one thing I love about this is I don't know if he was inspired a lot by like Tales from the Crypt. It reminds me a lot of that.
Yeah.
Or like the Twilight Zone, stuff like how it's like you have all these like scary stories that are connected either directly or indirectly through a theme, or they're all happening in the same location, but to different characters.
I kind of got a lot of that intended anthology universe of the original Halloween, like with 3 seasons of The Witch, that kind of stuff. That's what I got a lot of flavor of.
No, definitely, absolutely. This is what is wrong with me sometimes. No, this is just definitely, I think, a good example of the movie never loses sight of the original concept of itself.
Yeah.
It never tries to do what's like, oh well, if you were writing this today, someone would be like, oh, we got to have what's popular right now, what's fashionable, we got to throw that in. If I were to compare this to like the Scary Movie, there's a lot of jokes in there. If you've ever watched some of the older ones, there's a lot of jokes.
Don't land.
Because like they were so topical at the time. It's like now it's like if you don't know what that's referencing, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. This one, that's why I feel like this one has that, much like I said before with like some of the Christmas movies, how there's that timelessness to them. I really do think this is a holiday Halloween.
Yeah, and I think it's one that's only going to get better with age.
Yeah,
it seems like it's becoming intrinsic with the holiday, which is kind of cool.
But one thing I didn't realize here, so this was originally a short animated film.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool too. I don't think I've ever actually seen the short.
No, I've never seen the short.
But I would be interested in checking it out.
1996 too, when he did this and then decided, hey, I'm going to adapt it into a feature length.
Yeah, so almost 10 years before the original conception of the idea to when he actually got it out there. And he rode a wave of success after this, even though this had a rocky start to its distribution. And this gained its cult status, and then he went on to direct Krampus, which I think is a little bit better known than this is. Did pretty well in theaters. The comedy cast for that definitely clicked. Audiences love the cast. I know. And then only a couple years after that, he landed the big Godzilla King of the Monsters, which was kind of cool to see him do. And now they're talking about doing a follow-up to Trick or Treat. I know it's been buzzing around for a long time, but it's starting to get more grounded reception now, I think, than it has in some of its rumor stages. So we'll see what happens with that. I wonder. Take that one with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and you could do essentially, I guess the connecting character would be, and I know I'm kind of going out of order here, but I guess would be Sam, would be the connecting character.
As long as you have Sam in there, I think you can pretty much do anything with this.
Which I don't know if you know this, but if you look up like the cast, like IMDb for Trick or Treat. In fact, I'm gonna double check it right now, just to make sure I'm not lying. Do you have that anymore now, where you like gaslight yourself? I don't know if it's
yes,
if it's a technology thing now that's done this to me, but like I'm like so confident that this answer is correct.
I have at least 3 or 4 Mandela effects a week.
So what I'm getting at here is that Sam's name is spelled in a way to echo Samhain, like the old precursor.
Speaking of Samhain, the story thread of the kids, and this is going to lead into a bigger theme that I love about the movie. The girl who's dressed as a witch, Rhonda.
Yeah.
I love that she's just like, there's like little subtle nods to each of these storylines that the seeming victim is actually the predator, the perpetrator in each of them. And I love it. And like she's talking all about like the lore and history of Halloween and where it comes from, and she knows all about it. And that's like a subtle clue to the fact that she's not as innocent and unassuming as you would think that she is. And she ends up being the one walking away, leaving everybody massacred. And I love it. I think it should go without saying too, like all things on topic here, I think we should warn that there will be spoilers for the movie. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend checking it out. And
go check this out. Make it a Halloween tradition, or at least every other year, or just every once in a Halloween. It doesn't have to be Halloween, but I think it worked.
Yeah, it's a good one to look at from a writing perspective, because I think that it does the anthology type thing very well. That is it's a tricky nut to crack. I think that they do that quite well. So not just necessarily in the realm of Halloween, this does have some value.
Yes, and just I was correct. It's spelled Samhain. For Sam.
Yeah.
The zeitgeist character.
And I love his I showed you some of our spooky decor that we've put up.
Yes.
We got two Sams in here.
Wait,
with
you got
us.
two? You lied to me?
Yeah,
we
have the door.
One.
No, we got the door wrap, and he's on the door wrap. And then we got the candy bowl guy.
God. You're not gonna have that candy bowl guy for much longer.
yeah. I'm gonna have to hide that bad boy. You're not getting in here without it.
That is sweet. I do like that one.
Yeah, some good gets. So we do it up. We have fun here.
Yeah,
and this movie has Anna Paquin, so instantaneous win there. Brian Cox and what's the dude's name from Road to Perdition? Why am I blanking?
I just had it up too. Dylan Baker.
There's that fox again. If you've ever wondered what the fox says, it's that sound.
You know what? I've actually never wondered.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I love the Little Red Riding Hood twisting that on its head. Like we were saying, each of these anthology storylines kind of takes the assumed victim and flips them into the predator.
Yeah,
which I think we've talked in the past in previous episodes about the infamous term of
subverting expectations.
Yeah, subverting your the whole horrible term of subverting expectations, which is so commonly misused.
Yeah,
but this is an example of it being done right.
Yes. Well, I think too, and I feel like the fact that this started in 1996 for him.
Yeah.
And to get it made, how we got it made, I don't even know if I can't speak for him. But I don't even know if that was even the idea of like, I got to subvert everyone's expectation. I've always looked at it as I want to tell a good story. I don't care what it is, or something that I would want to watch.
Well, you could argue it too as the M. Night Shyamalan twist. It's like each of these has its own little M. Night Shyamalan twist.
It has those twists to it, and I think rather the point I'm getting at is like I would warn very heavily. I would warn you, I would caution you never to write something just to subvert the expectation. Like I would just try and take that out of your mind completely, because if you don't, it can heavily affect the story, because then you're writing to a point, or you're writing to a message or to an idea, rather than trying to tell an authentic good story and then letting the newer ideas come naturally. Like I don't think like the twists were necessarily in mind from the beginning, or that just he wanted to say, okay, I want to write these stories, I want to interconnect them, and it's like, okay, what can I do different with this? Where can I play on it and go from there?
Yeah. I was saying before that I got kind of confused as to like how the timeline unfolds. I do finally have it straight after I think the 5th or 6th time I've seen this.
Yeah.
And the thing that was really confusing me was that you see the very end in the beginning, and I always had assumed that I'd lost the break in time between where it leads through the credits and where it connects at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So the beginning occurs after, like the chronological beginning occurs after the title sequence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're seeing the end, and then they lead you into the beginning after the credits, which is kind of it's a clever little way to slip it and make you feel like you're coming in a full circle.
Yeah, and two, that is another I think purposely done. I would imagine. Obviously, there's a lot of times when you're writing a story. I would say most of the time, you always want to just tell it right from the beginning, from the chronological beginning to the chronological end. Then you can look at it and be like, okay, is it dragging anywhere? Is there some areas that could bore an audience or anything? And then one way to kind of fix that is you create what's sometimes been called artificial tension, and you can create that artificial tension by playing with the structure or what you show first as opposed to last, or like you said, starting in the pivotal end of the story is like essentially the first thing we see before then kind of going back to the beginning, and you have different things sprinkled in. I literally feel like I'm doing the other guy's scene right now where they're in the he's in the just tell us what happened, man.
You start at the end.
And then we go back to the beginning. Start from the beginning. I think the more appropriate
that is
thing
one of my favorite scenes
end,
from that movie.
and then go back from the beginning. But
it's so good. It does apply. It does kind of apply to this.
No, it does. But it makes it. That's doing it to be funny. But I mean, this Trick or Treat does that well. Does it exceptionally well, because there's so many times where like it wants you to pay attention and try to piece the stories together.
Yeah.
It evokes that fireside ghost story type.
Yeah.
Like this, every time I watch this, like I like I said, I'm reminded of like Tales of the Crypt or
Afraid of the Dark.
Are You Afraid of the Dark? Yeah, or just like that classic Halloween feel. This definitely gives it.
Yeah, and I think that Sam being the quote unquote spirit of Halloween, it does have this kind of etheric draw.
Yeah,
which I like we said in the beginning, like this kind of feels like it just belongs around Halloween in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, yes.
And it's kind of clever how they did it, because it is kind of just like quickly, now that it's like getting as widely known as it is now, where it wasn't before, it is starting to earn its place as one of those cardinal few movies that a lot of people watch on Halloween, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna have to make this I'm gonna have to make sure I don't wait, because I think the last time I saw this, maybe 10 years ago, would have been the last time I watched it. But I gotta make it a more recurring movie to watch.
Yeah, and I do like the comic style that occurs through the title sequence.
Yes,
that's a common trope in a lot of Halloween stuff. I noticed at Horror Nights this year they had that through their tribute store, which I thought was kind of cool. They even offered a comic series based on the story trends that they started with their original houses this year. But Trick or Treat also started a comic series off of that, which I thought was kind of cool. So it's like there's a little more to dig into beyond the movie in that. And if they do actually end up doing a sequel, it'll be kind of cool to have some connective tissue there.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was thinking too, like to kind of sum up what I was saying before. Another thing I really love about this movie is if it's going to break something or subvert the expectations, it knows it's doing it, and it knows, more importantly, why it's doing it.
Yeah, it's not just doing it for the sake of.
Yes, I feel like a lot of times people get stuck in that rut or that trap of, well, we need to subvert expectations. We need to do something different. So we're just going to do something different to be different. You never ask yourself, well, why are you doing that if not just to...
If you're just doing that, you're not accomplishing any grander attempts at storytelling.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of purpose to why you want it. Even if you just go with, well, it looks cool. I'll even give you that. But sometimes even that can be a little too thin, but I'll even give you that. But yes, you got to make sure it's like, okay, why do we want to do this? Why do we want to break this rule? Or why do we want to? Because you could, in fact, this would be interesting to do like a supercut, everything Trick or Treat, but done chronologically, rather than the back and forth. That would be interesting to see. I'm sure someone's done it.
It's interesting because like it's that scene with Wilkins and the old man.
Wait, which
in the backyard?
When he's
the
in
body
the beginning.
Of the kid.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's technically in the beginning and at the end.
Well, yeah,
because you see it from both of their perspectives and the different points. So it's interestingly mind bending in that way. But yeah, so they do kind of connect all over the place, and it's funny because Wilkins does show up in the werewolf storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So
I did not.
We know for a fact that takes place well after the very last scene with Brian Cox's character. So it's kind of it is a little tricky to kind of nail down where things kind of weave in together.
I'm assuming that is that the very last. So chronologically, would that be the end of it, like the scene with the werewolf?
Chronologically, the first scene with the couple would be the very, very end, which also occurs at the very, very end.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay.
That's the last thing you see because we see the wolves in the car.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot. Yeah, you see them driving by.
Post murder.
Yeah.
So
and that's why they're all like...
It kind of opens where it closes in a very interesting way.
And too, much like it has that, it's like poetry. They rhyme. It has that...
All right, George Lucas.
Okay. No, but it has that cycle, that circle. It's using the circle to, here's the beginning, here's the end, but they're the same thing. Much like the holiday, it comes around again every year. And here we are, like, sort of trying to...
Even though it precedes it, I do feel that this one kind of follows that Dan Harmon story circle.
Yes.
Like, it's before that was that whole term was coined, but like in principle, I feel like it follows that same structure.
And that's the one thing, too, I think we mentioned this in the structure video, like, the structures always seem to come after the fact or after someone's like studied something. But what's always interesting is that they're there, whether you recognize them or not. Those inexplicable patterns are there.
Yeah, through storytelling, I think you can kind of do it unconsciously sometimes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And whether that's just human nature, I don't know. Could be.
I definitely think that sometimes it is like very well thought out and definitely intentional, but who's to say?
Yeah.
Because it is very subjective as to whether that's the case or not.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
And maybe the answer to this. Why did they, is it because there is another thing called trick or treat? Because this is trick or treat. Like there's no O. There's just the...
I think it's an allusion to the art style with Sam writing on the walls.
Okay.
In the house.
So it wasn't
because it's kind of in the same kind of hokey, goofy linguistics that he writes.
He writes. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was like some stupid, what do you call it? Like copyright issue. Like someone's like, hey, I own this. You can't use it.
I don't know.
So
it may be something like that.
Yeah, I've always been curious because I do
took
like
it more
that.
As kind of like an artistic choice, but you might be right.
Yeah, it could be either. All right, where are we at?
Yeah, like any great horror, I do think that this one has some interesting morality plays. And I think some of the best horror kind of makes you question right and wrong in very like gray, interesting ways.
Here I got a take for you. You ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready.
This is Seinfeld.
The story of a girl.
No. Well, it is. This is Seinfeld without the Seinfeld aspect. This is if you take Seinfeld and do it straight, I think. I feel like this is using the same mechanic that Seinfeld does. And
there is at least 15 memes here.
You think?
At least.
Only 15? I'm thinking more like 50, man.
I'm thinking like 50, man. No, I was thinking specifically like the dirty talking, but it's like the werewolf scene.
Yes.
And then she takes her skin off.
Takes her skin off.
I really do hope that they have a Trick or Treat 2 in development. I'd be interested to see what Dougherty does with it.
No, so would I. Yeah, this is another good example, and it relies heavily on plant and payoff. Though this one,
yes.
I mean, without that, it doesn't. It would all kind of fall apart. But this is one that focuses big time. Like everything in here is gonna come back through, have a reason to be there.
Yeah, it's one that I really don't think that there's any unnecessary bits in there. And even more so, that's tricky when you do that because, especially in an anthology like this, people can get wise to that story to story. Then they'll start being able to predict and see where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
This one doesn't go that way. Not for me personally.
No, I would agree with that. Yeah.
There are, like, going back and rewatching it, though, there are some, like, little clever things. Like, I noticed in the werewolf storyline, in the earlier parts of it, it's like the sister references the mother calling her the runt of the litter.
Mm-hmm.
It's just some little clever nods to kind of clue you into what's going on, but they don't hit it on the head. So it's like you could very easily just glass over it and pay it no mind.
No, yeah, you definitely pick up on things on repeat viewing. No doubt with this. Well, like even like, okay, and this isn't like a huge thing, but the kids who are taking the one girl, the bully, essentially they're bullying. They want to dare her to go down into, like, I guess
into the rock quarry.
Yeah, the rock quarry, where the so-called monster children are. That and
I know a lot of people that haven't caught on to the fact that Brian Cox is supposed to be the bus driver.
Real? No, like no one. See, like I always, because that was what I was going to.
Yeah, for me, that one was pretty firmly hit on the head.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, you after having watched it. I mean, other than like when you get the final part where they show up at his door to finally get their exact their vengeance on him. But I mean, you can tell the way that, and I don't know if the two actors talked about this, I'm assuming, but the way that he walks in the flashback as the younger man, the younger Brian Cox's character, what's the character's name? Mr.
Krieg.
The way he walks, it's like identical.
Yeah.
To how they're doing.
I would feel like they discussed it.
I mean, they would have to, I would imagine. Otherwise, that is one scary coincidence.
Or it was something that Dougherty had in mind.
Maybe, yeah.
It across those lines.
So no, yeah, things like that. Just little things.
Yeah, some nice little details in this one that carry it through. And you had mentioned before, like Christmas Vacation, and that's another movie that it's like the more you watch it, the more like layers the onion you peel and little details you find. And it's like it seems like the more times you watch it, you never quite get all the way through to the center of it and find all that detail, because there's always more.
No, definitely.
And I like that about it. It's one I feel like I get something out of going back and rewatching it.
It's a candy bar unwrapping. No, I can.
If it was a candy bar, I wouldn't stop. I wouldn't stop.
Yeah, you're right. I can do better.
But you know what they say? Always check your candy.
Did a thing.
I did a thing.
If you've never seen the movie, go watch it, and then you'll know what the thing was.
Yeah, it's a very common
always
theme
check
through.
Your candy. That's a good.
Oh yeah, definitely
advice.
always check your candy. Yeah, I think that there's some of this, like the stuff with Wilkins and his son, like the fact that they end after Wilkins is already dead, but his son doesn't know this. He's dressed up as his father, kind of like insinuating that he's going to become like his father. So like the cycle will continue, kind of stuff. I liked little details like that.
No, and like I said, I love the little. Well, no, you have it here, like the themes of it, and you've mentioned it, the morality play of every story that's kind of going on.
Yeah, it kind of hits, like each story has a little something different of like Halloween tradition too, which I kind of like, and that's kind of the whole point. But I do think like you get the traditional scare with the kids.
Yeah,
you know, everybody ganging up on one person to try and spook. You get the trick-or-treating with Mr. Krieg's house, the jack-o'-lanterns. It's just kind of nicely layered with all these traditions, and it's kind of like Sam is like the harbinger of Halloween tradition. And if you don't follow that rule set, it's kind of like it's almost like it's trying to scare you into keeping up.
To making sure that you celebrate, and you celebrate properly Halloween.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of two. Did you ever watch there? Oh,
right.
Yeah, I'm there. The Halloween Tree. Do you ever watch that? It's an animated movie, early 90s.
The Halloween Tree. I can't say I'm terribly familiar.
It reminds me so much of the Halloween Tree, or in the way that for me captured Halloween. Back in the day. This too does. Ray, I think the story, like Ray Bradbury wrote it. I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know if it was ever like a literature piece or like a short piece of fiction that he wrote, and then they turned it into a VHS movie.
Yeah.
Or if that was it from the get-go, an animated film for kids. But essentially, the gist of that movie is 4 friends are off. They go to this house, and there's a tree that grows pumpkin, jack-o'-lantern, and one of their friends is like sick, and the jack-o'-lanterns are like souls of people. And his is like dying, so they're trying to save his friend. And there's the caretaker of the tree, who's like some weird old dude. I forget his name, but then shows the kids, like takes them around the world and shows them the origins of Halloween and stuff. While they're
weird old dudes are practically synonymous. With Halloween.
That's another thing. Yes, weird old dudes. Always got to have that.
Not unlike Mr. Krieg.
It's essential. You have to have it. 100%.
Must have, must see. I did like to, like we were talking about themes and morality. with the masked murderer walking the streets of the town. How he kills that girl and leaves her there in broad daylight. Nobody thinks twice about it because everybody's dressed like that. And that raised such an interesting question about Halloween for me. I was like, that does kind of put a kibosh on that, doesn't it?
It does. Well, and did you go? Do you still trick or treat? Because I still trick or treat. No, I don't. I don't trick.
Don't really have anybody to trick or treat with.
But for how long did you go trick or treat for? Is what I was going to ask. Like when did trick or treating officially end for you?
I don't know. I went probably close to high school.
I went last.
Even then, we still went out. I still had my Halloween traditions.
Yeah,
maybe not trick or treating. But.
Yeah, I was about, I want to say late middle school. Maybe, or like
that's about where I was
high
as
school,
well.
somewhere around there. It was probably the last.
I stuck to it as long as it wasn't creepy for me to do it.
See, I propose this. Here is my proposal. And I'm getting off topic here, but we are dealing with trick or treating, so it's not too far off. I am proposing that after kids trick or treat ends, so in my area it ends, it goes from like 6 to 8, which I always thought it went longer than doing.
Now, see, what you got to do is you got to be like the two bullies in Hocus Pocus. You just got to post up and then steal the candy bags.
just post up, steal. I'll just steal my nephew's candy. When he
I told you, my name ain't Ernie no more.
It's
ice.
But what I am proposing is after the regular trick or treat, we do an adults only trick to where everyone gives out free alcohol. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, like a craft beer.
Yeah.
Beer and trick or beer.
Trick or beer. Trick or beer.
Interesting. Yeah. You have my attention.
We need to make this happen. We need to come up with trick or. It probably already happens, I'm sure, somewhere.
That would be a really successful experiment in a food truck.
Yeah.
Like festival thing.
Yeah.
Where you do the different booze.
What's the saying? Like any idea you come up with, you have to assume that at least 100 other people have thought the same as well.
Oh, definitely.
So I'm sure something like this exists, but I think it should become more popular in some way. Doesn't necessarily have to be beer, but I like the concept, trick or beer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that.
But yeah, I'm excited to see more from Dougherty. I feel like his career is budding at this point, even still. I mean, he's been around for a bit, but
yeah,
he's got a couple heavy hitters on his career so far. But
no, I would definitely be anxious to see. So what and maybe you mentioned this before, with Trick or Treat 2, it looks like, is it kind of stalled out at the moment?
It's not like official in any
so
way
nothing
yet, which is unfortunate. But there are a lot of rumors swirling around it because of his Godzilla success in recent years. People were saying that there could be something coming from him, and there's a lot of cult following to Trick or Treat. So a follow up, if done right, could do very well.
No, and you could definitely do it again, almost like a American Horror Story type deal, where you get the same actors, and just create new stories around them.
And or two, like you said, I mean, it could just be Sam, and then you could craft a whole similar type thing around this with an entirely new situation. Yeah. And if you have him as the through line, I think you have that connective tissue there.
Yeah. No. Yep. Well, and it's always tough to do any type of non-linear storytelling.
Yeah, and it can be very tricky.
And it goes back to what I said. You have to be doing it on purpose. And I know that sounds stupid. It's like we're very obvious.
No, I get what you're going for.
But yeah, you got to make sure that, okay, I know I'm doing this. Again, we go back to
but you
why
also,
am I doing it?
Going in that same territory, you have to have it very well thought out before you go. You can't just throw out a bunch of simple stories on the wall and hope they stick. It's like you have to know how they're going to interconnect to one another. If this is what, like, if you're making something that interweaves in this way, it's like you have to know where those lines are drawn, so that way you can tie it up with a bow, so to speak.
You have to give a reason as to why you want to do it, so that audience gets something different out of it, or it enhances the storytelling experience by having not being told straight through. Because that's always a question you have to ask yourself, right? Like, okay, why can't I just tell this? Most of the time, the answer is you always can just tell it straight through. But if I do it this way, it'll help because it creates a different meaning. It ties together better thematically, and it then gives the audience an overall better experience than if you did do it just all the way through.
Definitely need more to fill.
Mm-hmm. So what exactly were the distribution challenges? Like, were they just, did they think that like no one would just like this movie, or
they had trouble just getting it lined up? Well, no, they did, and they were produced, I think it was Warner Brothers. Yeah, they were produced under the Warner label, but it was one of those things. Sometimes you can have a movie that's made by Sony but distributed by Disney, if it's like a Spider-Man or something. So it's like they had the movie produced by Warner Brothers, but they didn't necessarily have a distributor. So it kind of just suffered under that. They got the ball rolling, but they just struggled. Of what I could find online, all it said was that all I could find information wise was that they just struggled to find a distributor that would sell it forward to get theatrical release. So I think in lieu of that, they just opted in for a DVD release from Warner Brothers. In a weird way, I do think that all those issues did give this a very unique rollout that has only added to its cult status.
Yeah.
Because it's not one that made a big splash that everybody remembers, and it could have just faded into everything. It's like one of those ones everybody thinks back, is like, ooh, what's that? I don't know if I've seen that.
No, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and it came out in the wake of the whole Blockbuster collapse, so like it rode that Netflix DVD to mail kind of wave.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah,
a lot of people found out about
the Netflix.
Yeah, a lot of people found out about it that way. Does that even happen
anymore?
I think they just finally fully canceled that.
Okay.
I think that there were still like some kiosks around there, but I think they've finally officially shut that down. I did see the other day, I saw a really funny tweet from Blockbuster's official X or Twitter page, however you say it these days, saying, because Netflix is rolling out retail stores all of a sudden, and Blockbuster posted something to the avail of who wants to tell them.
That's good.
So I thought that was fun.
Well, here's something that never fails. I think is always funny. Talk about like themes. Here's a theme with just like filmmaking. So the movie is set in the fictional town of, Warren Valley? Yes. Ohio. And yet they ended up shooting it in Vancouver, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Which looks nothing like Ohio, if you've ever been to Ohio before.
Since we mentioned Austin Powers, it's like that joke in Austin Powers. It's funny how London looks in no way like Southern California.
But yes, no, exactly. Yeah, that's the same. It's just funny how like I want it to look like Ohio, and that's not a knock on him for doing. I get it. You got to do with whatever looks good, whatever fits the look, and this certainly does fit the look. It's just it's just so funny how that happens like all the time. It's like, I just wanted to say, I want to create a movie about Pittsburgh. It's like, well, we're going to have to go to Las Vegas to shoot it or something like that. It's like, what?
It's certainly, Spirit has had their field day with this. So they got a ton of decoration and merch there. Like I said, we've decked our place out very much in the style of Trick or Treat. I think even the year before, a few years back, they did a house for Trick or Treat at HHN. So it has reached a certain status. It was there the same year that they had done Poltergeist. First year they did Stranger Things. So it was amongst some good company there.
Well, yeah, and this is definitely. It's almost it's strange how can you have like it's a weird combination of kid-friendly gore. Does that make sense? Like. There is a charm.
I'll accept the werewolf storyline. I would agree.
Well, it's true. Yeah. Like, yeah. Obviously, I think it is rated R, right? It would have to be. But I think the word I should use is that there's that charm, and I think you mentioned that too before. There is a charm to this that you don't get from many horror movies. This is one of the few horror movies that I could watch on repeat and actually puts me in a better mood, or like I'm not necessarily frightened, but I'm like yeah, I'm in the Halloween spirit. So that's what I mean by that. Yeah.
Okay, it is rated R. I did check on that.
You did? Yeah. I was thinking like it's got to be rated R just with.
Yeah, I was thinking the same, but I wasn't positive.
But it's a soft rated R. That Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's really for only some key instances. It's not. I wouldn't say that it's across the board.
No, yeah.
Especially like that beginning sequence with the kid. I mean, it's mostly just.
And you say it's because it was originally seen as or intended as a short animated film, and then the comic.
Yeah, the comic series
that goes with it. So I think that you get that playfulness isn't the right word, but that's the only word I got at the moment to it. It is a horror movie, somewhat using that childhood Halloween lens a bit. So it does, like you said, play on those expectations.
Even though he's sadistic as hell, Sam does come over as very cute.
Well, when he keeps the mask on, you think? Even when he takes the mask off?
Yeah, I would even say still.
Okay.
There's an endearing quality to the pumpkin head, I think.
You think?
Yeah.
The question now is, where does he go when Halloween's over?
Into the spirit world. No, I don't know. You could. Here's a proposal for you. He only exists on Halloween.
Oh, okay. I like that. That's good. See, now you're getting into some world building. That's another thing I like about this. I feel like this has some world building into it, like as all good horror movies should.
Yeah, it's not just like the typical relating to the circles of hell that Halloween stories typically do. It's like, oh, there's like another spiritual, like Halloween spiritual level surrounding this. That's kind of interesting and intriguing.
Yeah, and by that I mean like when I watch it, just by the question me asking, even though I was asking for comedic purposes, but it still is true. The fact that I'm like, so where does Sam go, or the fact that I want to know more about him, or, and like the other legends surrounding the werewolf family, clan, whatever you want to call it, like where the hell do they come from? So this is definitely one that has that lore attached to it and does it well without ever giving me an encyclopedia moment.
Yeah, I don't ever feel like I'm, studying up. It's like it does feel like it's unfolding as a piece of entertainment.
Mm-hmm. And two, the fact that there's the rules in it, it's establishing,
which aren't like ever clearly spelled out either. No. It's just kind of like these ambiguous set of like what you're expected.
But I mean, when this came out in 2007, it had a lot to. It has to. Sometimes you have to think too when you're writing a story, creating a film, whatever. You think about the audience, and you have to think about, okay, what's the learning curve in terms of like how much are you going to have to, as the reader, the viewer, how much are you going to have to give to the story for it to be good, for you to understand what's going on? What is that learning curve? Like, like Lord of the Rings has a bigger learning curve than other books, I would say. Not in that you have to be like, like an Einstein to read it, just that it takes a little time.
It has a lot of material that goes with it.
And like you kind of have to like understand like who the characters are, the world. This, I think, does a really good job of not only establishing its rules, but also making sure that the preconceived ones that we have in our world, like in the real world, aren't thrown into it as well. With like, I never even knew like the jack-o'-lantern, like, oh, the light will protect you type rule that they throw in there. Like, I never knew, but I buy it now. Like that. I'm like, I'm in.
Speaking of which, bringing that up, I thought it was really clever that right before all the kids get claimed by the other children, they douse by accident the last candle of jack-o'-lantern. And they make note of that in the dialogue. And I thought that was really clever. It's almost like it's alluding to the fact that the candles were actually protecting them.
Yeah. And so yes, light your jack-o'-lanterns. I really did. And that is one thing that I liked. And I don't know if they made that up completely or if it does come from somewhere or if that has always been a Halloween thing. Like, is that where the jack-o'-lantern originally comes from, in that it is a way to sort of protect, like it's a protecting light during Halloween? I just always assumed it was a fun little thing to do.
I've heard a number of things over the years, like everything from like they're meant to be faces of the dead and things like that. Yeah. There's all kinds of different lore and legends to that have probably evolved through different channels over the years. There's a lot to play with in there, and I think that it's bringing out like the spirit of Halloween aspect of this in a little horror tale is an interesting avenue to go, and I think that a sequel could only enhance that and make it more interesting.
No, absolutely. No, and it does it well. It's just, it can be tough too when you're trying to do something different with something that's been done so often. You have to work against everyone's already built-in knowledge of a subject. Like if you try to do, for example, like a vampire thing, you've got so many things of what people are going to expect to have. And if you want to change that,
you're going to have to do something a little different.
Yeah. And if you want to change that, you almost have to figure out, okay, how do I like tell my audience without telling them that this is going to be a very different vampire story or zombie story or ghost story. This isn't going to play with
I thought
the
you
rules.
said it very eloquently in our Last of Us episode, how you have to do that element if you're going to redo it slightly differently, but not so differently that you're going to put off people who are familiar.
I said that?
Yeah, you said that.
Oh, okay.
in a way, maybe not those exact
like keeping
words,
it like fresh and familiar.
Yeah. Keep it fresh and familiar, but put your stank on it, put your spin on it.
Put your spin on it.
But yeah, I think we might be okay there. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add in?
I'm trying to think. Was there anything? Oh, there is. Yeah, here's one little thing. I don't know where you want to put this.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about the sound in this. I love the sound. And once again,
fantastic.
I think horror, you got to have a good sound, a good score, and a good sound design going on with any horror movie. Don't overlook how important that is. I think is it Spielberg who said the quote or something that like an audience is quicker to or less likely to forgive an audio issue than a visual one. I think something along
something
those
to
lines.
that avail.
Whereas like, and it's true. It's like you think about it, like if you see a movie and like you don't have the sound, you're immediately like, oh yeah, the sound's not working or something. That's one of the first things that you'll notice is the sound is not working. But if there's something wrong with the visuals,
I can forgive a cinematography mistake or far before bad
you would
sound.
give
If I can't pick up the dialogue,
you'll let a visual thing go, which is so strange because it's a completely visual medium. Well, not completely, but it's mostly a visual medium. But the fact that if an audio thing is missing or a mistake is done, it's like, nope, sorry. So I just wanted to point out that this does that well, extremely well, and does a very good job. The scene when you were talking about just now with the kids before they're devoured.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You never see it happen. You only hear it after she rides up the elevator.
Yeah, she's standing atop the rock quarry.
Yeah, she takes the lift.
Hear the massacre.
Yeah, she takes the lift up, but you never see them get torn to shreds. You just hear it as she slowly walks away and then sees Sam looking at her from afar. But I think that scene, the sound in that, and it's always it follows that another storytelling aspect of less is more. We never see it, the horrific fate that befalls those kids, but we hear it, and then the rest is left up to us to decide what's just in our minds to make up. So that's one thing that this does well. I think it takes you up to that point, that precipice, but then pulls right back at the end. So you don't necessarily see everything, and then the rest is kind of left up to your own imagination to fill in the gaps.
And that can be like we've talked a little bit about Jaws in the past in other episodes. It's like leaving your audience's imagination as the most powerful weapon in horror is one of the best things that you can do.
Yeah, especially in horror, I'd say.
Yeah, your audience's imagination is often going to be far more terrifying than anything you can come up with.
Yeah, no, always the reader or the audience is co-creator. I'll say it again. So yes, definitely. I can't say enough about Trick or Treat. Make it
it's a good one. Very good for the season.
Yeah, make it a holiday classic.
Oh, I like.
I've been waiting to use that one.
How long you got that one in the chamber?
Coming here for 20 years. Flying DeLorean. I haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen one in
30 years.